Verify team approaches politics the same way we take on every other story. We stick to the facts and avoid spin or misinformation. And you may have seen that President Joe Biden has been signing a lot of executive orders lately. And social media has noticed. There's been a backlash from many on the right. That includes lawmakers like Senator Marsha Blackburn, writing on Twitter, quote, "You can't govern with a pen and a phone." So let's verify, is President Biden issuing executive orders at a faster pace than his predecessors? Our sources include a pair of databases tracking executive orders, one by the Federal Register and the other by the American Presidency Project. We also looked through the White House website, which is detailing each presidential action.
But he's on a record pace.
We also spoke with Alan Lichtman, a distinguished professor of history at American University. So let's dive into the numbers. In his first week, President Biden has issued 22 executive orders. And this doesn't even include the many other proclamations and memoranda. By comparison, President Trump issued just 4 executive orders in his first week. President Obama issued 5, and George W. Bush issued 0.
We are talking about a stadium-size difference. And these are executive orders of great significance as well. It's not just the number, it's also the import.
Lichtman says the reasoning for all this comes down to 2 factors. First off, President Trump issued a lot of executive orders. The Federal Register tracks it at 220 in just 4 years. And Biden can simply reverse many of them. Then there's factor number 2.
This says a lot about Congress.
Lichtman says that Democrats have a very slim majority in the Senate. For that reason, passing meaningful legislation is going to be difficult.
Given the tenuousness of the Democrats' grip on Congress, it's not surprising to see Biden take the executive order route.
So we can verify that so far, President Biden has issued executive orders at a faster pace than previous presidents.
I don't expect Biden to keep up this pace, but it's nonetheless quite extraordinary.
With your Verify, I'm Evan Kozlov.